inside the meeting house before we sit down. Maybe spend no more than 10-15 minutes taking a quick tour, so that to breathe a little life into what's before you tonight on the agenda. The first thing is going to be reviewing and passing, I certainly hope and pray, to approve a contract so we can get a historic structure report done of the building, and to get something up and running towards getting a Save America Treasures grant that can be worth up to $500,000 for the town to do the restoration work that needs to be done around here. But I'm not going to say a whole lot. I am going to say, with this nice breeze coming around, I'd like to start over here and introduce a project that has been undertaken by the town GOP committee. Something that was approved by the select board back earlier in the season. Folks looking for a way to be able to use the meeting house as it was intended, as gatherings for different kinds of civic and meetings in town. However, they could not afford the $150 per meeting, so we have an exchange where they're offering some wonderful labor. I want to turn it over to you guys. Bill.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Morse, and two of our volunteers are with us. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Mike Zacchaeus.
Michelle O'Hagan, Saxon's River.
We normally have between 8 and 9 volunteers that show up on a monthly basis. They come here at 10 o'clock on a Saturday morning when this area of the Hearst house, this part of the property, is still in the shade, and work. This last Saturday we worked 4.5 hours. The first Saturday in June we worked I'd say 2.5 hours, and then we had four volunteers come back the following day on Sunday and did landscaping and cleared out all the brush along the property line. So that if you look down the tree line underneath the trees, you'll see that it's been cleaned out. And we're going to continue on a monthly basis. What we do is we chip in the hours, and this way the town has waived the fee for us to have our candidate forums. And our candidate forums are going to take a break during the month of August. But in September and October we will be having candidate forums with candidates from all three parties that are looking for success being elected on November 8th when we have the general election. So Walter and I talked about priorities for the property and what we could do insofar as carpentry work and masonry work that did not require professional restoration. That could be done on a very basic level. And first priority was dealing with a post that was compromised, upon which this hinged door was bolted into thin air. If you look here, you'll see what's called a Dutchman. We chiseled out two areas, two pockets that were rotted. The bottom part here had an infestation of carpenter ants. It looked like vertical honeycombs. Through the help of some non-lethal chemicals, we were able to take care of the carpenter ants, left the area sit for a couple of weeks to make sure that there was no reinfestation. Then we chiseled out these two areas so that these hinges would have something solid to bolt into.
And I'm here to testify. I've been docenting here for 5 years. The first time in 5 years we're able to not only close the door safely, but we can also hook it to make it tight for the winter so that the hearse is better protected. It seems like such a simple thing, but I can tell you right now that we had cost estimates for it back in 2018 of upwards of $18,000 to get what these folks have contributed to make sure that this hearse house, which has been around, we think since before the Civil War.
1849, actually.
1849.
Mike or Michelle, would you like to add some more detail to what we've been doing here with the hearse house and also the hitching posts?
Yeah, we also cleaned out the little shed, which has a nice hole in it from a rodent, or a rodent family. So that was cleaned out. Everything was brought out into this open area, was swept out, and then there was ply boards put down, and then all the stuff brought back in. And then we also kind of fixed the door so it would hinge properly as well.
It looks like just a simple little thing, but inside there we have a lot of the architectural artifacts from the building that have been removed over the years. That's where we found the clapboards with the red paint that is now infamous around town, the original color of the building. That's where we found the artifacts. It's a collection. That's where the bits and pieces that we can do historic interpretation. That's where the junk is stored, and it's now protected from the rodents. Jim, do you want to? Where are you, Jim?
Sure. You want to come down and look at the fence next?
The fence is another problem area. It's being addressed.
Leave it.
So the earliest pictures we have in the meeting house show the same design fence, white, very classical fence. You find it at Old Deerfield. It's a very plain fence. If you look at diagrams of types of fences, this is the plainest you can get. Just vertical pickets with 2 horizontal boards. And to give an example of something a little bit dressier at Old Deerfield, every other picket drops down like that, just to give it a little bit of pizzazz. But it complements the meeting house very well. So the stone posts go around the front, down the hill, and around by the Grange over there, and then you stop. And it seems like the white picket fence was on the front and that side of the meeting house property, the National Historic property. And then after that it was stone walls or some other method to fence off the cemetery. That's the carrying beams going from stone post to stone post are pressure treated 4x4. So those are probably 1970s vintage. And then the pickets, believe it or not, are in pretty good shape. I removed 25 pickets, but these horizontal boards are rotten. Pop those off, and was able to pop off the pickets for scraping and repainting my parents' barn. And only 3 of them are rotten. So it's pretty easy to scrape 4 sides, repaint, and replace them. This time with screws. Everything will be screwed together, so if there's a picket that needs to be replaced, it'll be easy to do. The pressure treated is in good shape. It is fast. They're all fastened to the stone posts well, so it's pretty promising. The only problem is if you start there and count how many there are, I'm not sure. I didn't want to do it. You know? But I've already come up with an idea, is to have like 25 or 50 pickets ready to go, and then strip off 25, and then you have the next ones ready to slide right in. Same with the horizontal boards. And get a bunch of volunteers. And over like a 10-year period, you could do them all and then start over again. But it's been a wonderful change with the committee here working on this and getting these things going. The other thing that happened is all the drainage from the meeting house comes down right against the fence right here. So we dug out under it, and one of the reasons the bottom board looks so bad is because it was buried in the dirt. So it needs to be yearly maintenance, just to make sure that the boards aren't being touched by the dirt.
Jim, I have a question. Is it a possibility to just raise the fence 6 inches?
Well,
on the granite post?
You could, but
Or 4
this
inches?
height is, if you look at the original town meetings, there was a specification of the height of your fence that you had to have, each of the incorporators. And I noticed that that specification was the same as what's here. So if you raised it, you would be violating the 1780 town meeting dictum. Yeah.
You know, as we walk around and come over to the meeting house over here too, I do want to point out that Jim has bush hogged that field out by 103 on the other side of that tree line, and has also been helping and working on keeping that tree line and some of the other areas over there cleared up a little bit, so we can now see the meeting house from the road again. We also had a nice donation to help pay for some tree work done along that line. Somebody from Atlanta, Georgia, who comes up here regularly and could no longer see the meeting house coming down Parker Hill Road. He wanted to help as he could. So many hands make light work, and I think as Paul Brune, the former director of the Preservation Trust in Vermont, said, historic preservation is a team sport, and we have people literally from other parts of the country helping out, and certainly people in the community. As we walk down over, because I do want to show you something that's vitally important in terms of what's happening with the building, and I want folks to be aware of it. As we go by too, if you eyeball the graveyard, you see a lot of the stones are falling over. A couple of weeks ago, I spent some time here with the director of monuments for the National Park Service, and we spent about a day and a half through the yard. And we're going to be coming up with a plan. We have some funding from the Vermont Division for Historic Preservation. We're going to be doing a conference in May where we're going to be training people. But before that even, we're going to start doing something like cleaning up and start to reset some of these stones before they crack and fall over. Let me give a shout out to Diane Jones, wherever she is. Diana Jones, one of our commissioners, Historic Preservation Commissioner, has really been taking charge, I think, too, with cleaning some of the stones. If you're interested in stone cleaning, she's a go-to person on that.
Walter?
Yeah.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
I think you should mention how the granite post and the fence down there, it's all deteriorating because it's metal.
Yeah. Yeah. These hitching posts were, the town never had, as far as I know at least, a stable. Oftentimes meeting houses had stables for families to pull in their horses when they came out for meetings and their carriages. We never had that. We had these hitching posts, and many of these were falling down. And again, the GOP group spent some time resetting these stones. They'll be resetting them on the other side. Time permitting and weather permitting, I think that folks will also be helping to set some of the stone posts for the fence. As you can see as we go down here, the fence is falling, and it's a matter of resetting to get it plumb again. One of the big concerns that a number of us have had, we docents, the docent group, we're kind of the front line, I think, of the historic preservation. So we keep an eye on the place whenever we're here. And we've been noticing the last few years where you see it more dramatically from the inside, where this corner is starting to separate away from the rest of the building. And we started looking into the possibility it might be a foundation issue. We had an engineer a number of years ago say it's probably that. It could be some sill plate issues. So it got us to thinking, and somebody in the community did step forward and is going to help us bring on an engineer to look at this more carefully and closely. This is part of the historic structure report. When some of the engineering groups came here preparing their proposals for us, 2 or 3 of them came in. The water boards were still on, but they were able to get underneath a little bit. One of them pulled this out. This is part of our sill. And it's probably an issue of the sill. We had a similar issue about 35, 40 years ago that was addressed in the front of the building. It's now an issue back here. So we're hopefully going to have this addressed over the next year or two, hopefully through the Save America Treasures grant, which is what that HSR report and the conditions is. We got to sell the National Park Service that we're worthy to have this place saved, which is the purpose of the Save America Treasures. They just don't give it out to anybody. You have to be, your National Historic Landmark has to be at risk, and I think it's demonstrably on that
You just lost
path.
the evidence.
Yeah.
Scoop it up.
Put the back in your
God, the sun is out. Isn't that beautiful? But again, as we go by over here, we want to see if we can catch up with Charlie over here, because it's one thing to work and have volunteers work on something like the falling stones, if they're the smaller slate stones. Those can be handled by 3 or 4 properly trained volunteers. I've done a number of resets. I've worked with a couple of other volunteers to reset to get an idea as to what the program might look like. But as we come into the newer part and move away from the graveyard and into the 19th century cemetery, we have much larger stones. We have much bigger issues, because some of these stones weigh upwards of 20, 25 tons. Marble or granite. And we can't have volunteers work on that. But we can have families. We do, in fact, now have 2 families who've stepped forward, the Duvals and the Severances. Just this last weekend, I had a conversation with members of the Severance family. We're going to be working on one of their family plots off in that direction. But Charlie's been working with Marcia Duval, and we've identified this particular family plot as something that we're going to be turning attention to try to bring back and preserve. Charlie, they're all yours.
This is the first Duval. There's actually 3 different Duval plots, and this is the first one. This is Manassas, and many of the relatives. In fact, most interesting one is George here, who was killed in 1826, massacred by the Indians at the Lower Sioux Agency in Minnesota in 1882. So there's a lot of interesting monuments like that in this cemetery. And I thought that it would be a great idea if we could find out if people that have family here, that, for generations, like the Duval family, for 6 generations, would be interested in possibly funding the restoration of their gravesite. And Marcia Duval, who is the last of the Duval 4 children, in fact, many of you remember Link Duval, that was the chair of the select board for many, many years. And she said, yeah, fine, I would like to do that. So that's one of the first projects that we're going to be doing, is we're going to take, Fenton and Hennessy is going to be working with us to do this, and she's agreed to pay for whatever it's going to cost to do it. As you can see, that it needs quite a bit of restoration, and to straighten all the stones, to do the granite, put it all back upright, to put in all new sod in here, or whatever they're going to do, and to make it look really beautiful. So Walter, where are you? Walter, we're going to have some kind of meeting in the May.
Yes, next
Okay.
May. That's on the agenda. That's one of the documents that I circulated to ask, as part of the follow-up to the conversations that have been going on about a cemetery commission, that because we have a volunteer group here, the request is that the select board say it's okay for this volunteer group to be engaging and doing what we're doing, and to help organize this funded project that will kick off a real community effort in the spring, in May of next year. A lot of planning, and we're going to be getting some really good talent, I think, here to do workshops and show us what needs to be done.
And at the pilgrimage, which was last Sunday, right, John? Last Sunday?
I think so, yes.
Okay. So,
long time ago.
So the Severances were here, and also the Lovels were here. Well, descendants of those people. And we got to talk to these folks, and we mentioned that what we're trying to do with the cemetery, and they were very interested in getting involved. So these are the things that are going on, which I think is wonderful, in the sense that if we can get more folks interested in being able to support the Rockingham Meeting House Cemetery, it would be wonderful. And Marcia is going to be the first one, the Duvall family is going to be the first one to try to do this and maybe get other folks interested.
Thank you, Charlie. I think that this will be done, we hope, so that when we have that conference, we'll be able to showcase this as what can be done without a lot of money. We had one estimate, if professionals came in to do all this work by themselves, it'd be upwards of $23,000 to reset the curbstones, clean all the monuments, do all that landscaping in there. And I think we're going to be coming well under that, and largely because we have volunteer energy and support of a family that'll come in and help restore this and hopefully others over time. Again, it takes a team to do historic preservation.